Welcome to the Inspired Focus podcast. This is your host, Jamie O'Connor, and this is part 2 of my interview with my good friend and soul brother, Nick Cavuoto. I'm so excited. I'm not going to go into the full-blown intro because you should go back and listen to part 1 because it is amazing. And today we're going to dive right into something that we both love, but Nick has been bringing deeply into his practices as a coach and a mentor. I'm going to get to learn about myself today, and you all will get to see how it can work in your life. So we're going to go into a human design reading, and I think maybe touch a little bit on gene keys, but we talked a lot about gene keys last time. So this is mostly going to be human design, and we're going to see how Nick brings it into his world, how he supports the people that he works with, and helps you really get into deep alignment. Nick, welcome back. I'm so excited.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm so pumped. This is going to be a blast. And I think that, you are always giving people such amazing gifts and opportunities. Today is a chance, I think, universally for that to come back to you. So thanks for everything that you do. Appreciate it. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So this is going to be a blast. So let's do this. Do you want me to just kind of like start from the top and rock through it?
Yeah. So I guess one thing for the listeners and those watching on YouTube, if you're listening, we are going to be doing screen sharing today. So you probably want to check out the YouTube as well. You'll get plenty out of just listening, but being able to go check out how we read the chart and what that looks like, I think that's going to be really valuable. Also, wanted to just preface, Nick does not have my birthday. He doesn't have any of my information. We are doing this like ground up. You are going to get the full-blown experience.
Totally.
So yeah, it's super fun. So yeah, I think let's just go in. If you want to share your screen and we'll go for it. Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right, sweet.
And as Nick's doing that, one of the things I'll mention that I'm excited about, because you guys, for anyone who continuously listens to my show, I did an amazing episode with Kayla G, who goes into hypnosis and gene keys and human design and how that all works together. And it's such a beautiful, incredible view of it. And Nick brings a whole other perspective because he really brings in the masculine structure and the masculine energy into this, which is so important and beautiful, because in order for us to flow, in order for us to live into the beautiful, flowy, feminine energy, and I'm talking all humans, not just women, but all humans, we have to have a really incredible structure that we can lean into. And that, I think, is what Nick brings to the table in being able to incorporate human design, which, as we talked about in the last episode, it tends to be a lot more women kind of in this world doing this. So yeah. Super cool.
Yeah, it's awesome, and I think that, cracking the code for me was I was looking for context on my calling. And I think that that's human design it's a great tool that provides the contextual nature of our uniqueness of who we are, what we do, why we're here. And I do absolutely treat this like a confirmation bias. And so as we go through this today, I want you to think about it in the same way. Let's confirm the things that we know, and the things that we need to explore. That's totally fine. But let's confirm the things that we know to be true. And I'm going to kind of show you how to leverage human design for your personal brand so that you can build your business from a place of energetic clarity, and also from a place of empowerment and posturing of where you're in the right place, doing the right things with the right people at the right time. And we know that that's critical to the journey, because there's so much that we can do. But how can we hone it into stay in our zone of genius? So yeah. All right, let's rock it.
Use it as a tool for growth. Use it as a tool for growth and expansion, not as an excuse for behavior.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? I think that's a really important preface, because it's so easy, right? In any of these tools, personality tools, Enneagram, any of them, it's so easy to be like, oh, well, I'm a 7 Enneagram, so I'm an escape artist, so that's why I do the thing I do, versus being like, oh no, actually, here's that's the shadow side, here's the gift side, and this is how I get to use it as a tool of growth and expansion, and recognize when I'm in my shadow and change course and not be a total jerk or whatever it is, you know? So
Yes, absolutely. I love it. All right, let's get rocking. Cool. So I'm gonna we're gonna do all this real time. So I'm gonna type in your information right here, and we're gonna pull up your chart. So we're on geneticmatrix.com, and OCONNER. Is that correct? Oh, sorry. See, there we go. All right.
No, birthday. So for anyone who's going to my Instagram, it's OR at the end of O'Connor. Okay. Birthday, May 13th, 1985. Now you all know.
There you go.
How old I am.
May 13th, and mine's May 15th. So some of our uniqueness is starting to make sense.
Yes.
And the timing?
7:30 in the morning.
Okay. Awesome. 7:30.
I always thought it was 7:32, and then I just got my birth certificate, and I was like, oh, it's like on the nose. Okay.
On the nose.
So, yeah.
That's so good. I love it. And then what city or town?
Boulder, Colorado.
Boulder.
Right, yeah. Cool. That's the
boom. There it is.
The witchy hippie in me, you know. That's like
yeah, right. I love it. I love it. All right, sweet. Well, we're gonna pull it up right now and see, and I'm gonna walk you through each step of the process. And you know, of course, this is sacred space. So you know, if you have any questions or want to dive into anything, we can absolutely have those conversations as they come up for you. Points of clarity.
I'm so excited to see what you think based on like the ones that you've seen. And I know last time, one of the things on the last episode you mentioned, which is kind of how we got to this, let's do this second part 2, is that you haven't seen that many defined heart centers. And I was like, I have a defined heart center.
Yeah. Well, you know, what's interesting, and this is what I like about human design as well, is it drafts like, you know, it takes like the 7 chakra systems and kind of spreads it to 9. And so there's some uniqueness in there that we'll walk through, and I'll show you kind of, and I'll go back and forth between my chart too, because there's a lot of uniqueness of what areas that people are naturally electromagnetically connected. You know, this is like the natural laws of like synchronization, collaboration, attraction. Like, what are the things that I'm naturally, that you have a gift in, that I have a receptor in, and then now we know how we can collaborate and work together. And so it's about the uniqueness of you as an individual, but we're also going to talk about the uniqueness of you in your connection with other people. And when you do this enough times, like I've done this, I don't know, 25, 30 times with people. And so you start seeing patterns, and you start seeing recognition around like, oh, so, you know, 25 out of 30 people who've come to me all come to me for this reason or for this thing. And I'll show you some behind the scenes. That's my goal today, is to go like, totally behind the scenes, give it all away, exactly like how I do this, how I figured it out for me, how I use it for my messaging, how I use it for product building. We'll talk about as much as we can within the time frame that we have. And if we have to do a part 3, then we'll do it. Awesome. All right, cool. So I'm going to start here at the top. And so I have your chart in front of me. And so over here on the right, the first thing that I'm inspecting are the centers that you have. But I checked real quick your type. So you're a pure generator. Right. So pure generators are essentially here to get shit done. And a good way to think about the generators are like the Energizer Bunny. And we know that about you. You've got a ton of energy and it like never ends, which is awesome. And so, for example, I'm a projector. So for me, I'm like, you know, I project things. So give me a person and I'll make them amplified by 100 times. Right. Think of an overhead projector. That's literally what we do. We take the script of life and we make it bigger. And a lot of times the script of life that we're magnifying happens to be a generator. Like, you know, projectors and generators typically collaborate a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Although generators have about 5 times the capacity of energy than a projector does. And so
projectors need a lot of rest.
A lot of rest.
Like recuperation.
A lot of rest.
Yeah.
And our cardinal sin is like trying to keep up with people like you. So, so like we're always around a bunch of generators, but we're not used to like, well, or we're conditioned, right? But we're not used to having to like have the energy output. And so a lot of times we can get crabby or, you know, overwhelmed or whatever, because we have about 1/5 of the amount of energy. So I always say like a projector is like a helicopter. It can go really, really high and get great visibility, but for a short period of time, where a generator is like, you know, a 747, you can fly coast to coast. And it's just a different type of energy, a different mode of transportation. And it's just a little bit different. So like you're here to get things done in the world. And we're going to talk about what that looks like. 5-1 is basically the heretic and the investigator. which I think is really cool as well. So your creation is as a heretic, which I think you can think of people in history who were the heretics. Martin Luther King Day just passed. He was a heretic. Jesus was a heretic. Mm-hmm. Gandhi was a heretic. I mean, you can go through all these different people, whether religious and or activists, who were called heretics, and they had these big, crazy ideas. And you're also an investigator, which shows that like you're really mindful about connecting the dots of your life and also of the people that you serve. It's probably why you're really good at marketing, really good at events, right? Because you've got to have all the answers in your process of investigating the solution that you want to create. And so those are very, very small overviews and just my interpretation of how those operate. But I'm sure you've done a lot of work studying what those are. But
yeah, I mean, I think I mentioned this last time, but learning my profile was honestly one of the biggest eye openers for me because I had always struggled with people seeing the heretic in me, right? Like people being like, oh, you need to be on stage. You need to be leading the charge. You need to be doing this. And me being like, oh, that's really interesting. Like I feel that in me. And I also have this investigator side, which can, on the shadow side, keep me from stepping in because I feel like I need to know everything before I step into the leadership position, right? Like I feel like I never know enough to stand in that role in integrity. And so being able to break through that push and pull and just learning that profile piece about myself opened up so many opportunities to be like, oh, I see where I hold myself back. I see how other people see me, and it allowed me to take the steps before I was ready because I could see where I was holding myself back in that whole piece.
Totally.
Yeah.
I'm a 1-3. So in a similar way, I've had to confront a lot of the investigator in me that it's constantly searching for the answers. And then on the other side, it's like just getting into action. And one of the things I figured out was like when I'm obsessing about me, it's the wrong energy. It's like I was forced to try to figure out a lot about myself so I could help other people discover who they are. And it's a transition through choice. So when I feel like I'm ready, may not be when I'm ready. It's when I make a decision that I'm ready. And that's what allows me to express my gift into the world and leverage the investigator is like, we'll always over investigate is kind of what I've learned is like, we'll naturally always over investigate.
Yeah.
So it's about getting into action and committing and then just like trusting the process. Right. And so we share that. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah. And one of the things I've learned about the investigator piece. So for anyone else out there who has a line 1 that has been really beautiful in the last year is because of that. And then combined with this heretic leader type role, one of my gifts for the people that I serve is I'm able to absorb so much information and then distill it for other people so that if they don't have that like deep desire to go super deep into like learning something, I can be a person that adds value to their life, adds really incredible pieces and nuggets of knowledge without them having to go as deep as I've gone.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
1,000%.
Anyway.
That's very true about
profiles.
I
think the profile part is so interesting. That's like my jam. I love that part.
And what I love about human design is like, we could literally just do a talk on profiles and just interpret that. Or we could do it just on your split or just on your type or just on your incarnation cross. And so that's why like there's so much. I think a lot of people can get lost. So I'll just kind of caution. I have the prophet line, which is line 12. So for me, I'm like constantly cautioning while inviting. Right. And the idea is that like, again, leverage it as confirmation bias, but like allow it to like almost like the human body. Like there's so many different parts of your body you can explore. Right. And that sounds really strange, but it's like I could study about the lymphatic system and I'm super fascinated by that in addition to like why the bottom of our feet when they're wet, like why they, get all raisiny, and it's like, it's actually was part of our evolution to like have grip in water. Like it's just so fascinating. And I feel like human design's the same way. All the scientists in the world and all the information that we know about the human body, different than energetics, we only know about 1% of how the human body operates. Like, think about that. Think about all the universities and all the like medical facilities and all the stuff and even all the breakthroughs. And we still only know about 1%.
Yeah.
So allow yourself to be immersed in this for those who are listening and allow yourself to just find like, what is it that you're looking for? And today I'm going to leverage on your personality side. So over here on the chart on the right-hand side, I'm going to start showing you how to leverage this for your personal brand. So we're going to talk about the uniqueness of who you are, how you naturally show up in the world, what your message is, what grounds you. It's going to be a lot of fun. There's a lot to do. So I'm like, the investigator in me as well is like, let me give you the highlights and also where I found these answers and stuff. And I think that's going to be really helpful. So the first thing I'm looking at over here on the right, like, let's just kind of look at your centers. So you have an open head, right? So anything that's open means that you're more open to conditioning and also to learning. That's where all of our wisdom centers are. So a lot of times we're actually selling, if we're leveraging for business, we're selling from a place of where we're open, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's the areas in life of where we weren't born with the instructions. So what's cool is that we have the opportunity to learn some really valuable lessons in our open centers and in our open gates. So I actually ended up creating a list of like all my open centers, all my open gates to figure out like, what is it the gate of? And then what have I learned in that area? I would rate it on a scale of like 1 to 10, like what the value is potentially in what I'm offering someone or how I'm helping someone. And it was kind of a mixed bag. Like some of the areas of where I was born with the center defined is actually where I've done the most amount of work. And the centers of where you're defined is also where you have consistent energy. And that's a really important part. So although we may be selling, like for you, you might be selling like from the intuitive side of the nature of who you are. At the same time, you may not have like consistent energy that's tapping into your intuition. So you're like, well, do I sell from whatever? It's like, well, no, you probably saw the value of your intuition. So therefore you built a system or have some brainstorming, some ideas on how to like systematize your intuition because you don't have direct access to it all the time. You see what I'm saying? So it's like this uniqueness of like, when we figure out our centers, we can figure out like where we've gained wisdom, how we've built systems around things that we've needed to actually solve in our unique design. And it can be really powerful. So there's a couple different like theories or thought processes around how to leverage this for your business. I kind of go to like, again, confirmation bias and then go deeper. So for you, you have an open head. You have a defined anja. So your anja is essentially where the systems and processes are stored for you. So you kind of have like a defined way of how you systematize and or have unique processes based on the work that you do. Your throat center is also defined. So your throat center is all around communication. Underneath is your identity center or your G center. And that's basically all around identity, self-love, self-empowerment, things like that. To the right is the heart center, which again, in the classic chakra system, those are one and the same.
Oh, that's the right. Okay. Yes. So I was wrong. I don't have a defined heart center.
That's okay. You brought it up. And what was cool about that is like, that's what kicked off this conversation. So like, so it's actually, interesting. It's neat. So that heart center to the right is all about resources, willingness. It's around money, resourcefulness. And so that's what that center is to the right. And you do have 2 of the 4 gates defined. So holistically, it's open to conditioning, but you have 21, which is the manager, and then 26, which is the sacred salesman. So both of those are unique to you. Like you have the ability to manage and you also have the ability to sell, which you do, and you do it in a unique and sacred way. And we'll talk more about that. Directly underneath is the sacral center, which you have defined. And obviously, if you're a generator, you have a defined sacrum. To the left, so on the left wing, you have your intuitive center, which is the spleen. On the right are the solar plexus, which is your emotional intelligence center. And then underneath, directly at the bottom, is the root, which is all about drive, ambition, like getting out there. You know, like you've probably heard it said, like people like to have this drive that comes from like that internal place, like that's coming from the root. Right. And sacral is around sex, vitality, life force energy. So again, you guys have, as generators, direct access to that life force energy. For me, I'm kind of like riding the wave of life. Right. And so I kind of like, when it pops, then I run hard. And then when it stops, I stop. And that's how projectors and generators are a little different. So that's a very, very quick overview of those centers and how uniquely they happen. So what I would say is you want to deliver your programs from the defined centers. So you'll deliver from a system and a process, or from a place of communication, or from a place of like gate number 10 in your identity center is called the God gate. So that's like the ultimate gate of coaching. So like you have direct, consistent energy in your ability to coach people. underneath in your defined sacrum, you have consistent life force energy, right? So like I'm looking at this and consistent drive. So you want to deliver from those areas. That's where people are going to like look to you for help. But at the same time, if you're delivering from an open heart center, that means you don't have direct access consistently to like the energy of accountability. So while you coach people really well, you don't have direct access to like constantly keeping people accountable to what they say they're going to do.
Yep.
Make sense?
Yeah. It totally.
Right.
And it's not how I coach, right? Like I coach from a place of I'm not your person if you're looking for somebody to keep you accountable, because I fully expect full entire personal responsibility and you to show up in that energy. And I check in on you, but I'm not keeping you accountable to do your stuff. That in my world is I coach you to become the accountable person.
Yep. And exactly. And that's part of a defined route. So yeah. A defined route is all about like drive and ambition. Like I know what I'm here to do. Like you should know like what your goals are too. Like I shouldn't have to tell you and hold you accountable to your own goals. If you state your goal, then I expect you to like chase and go after your goal and manifest your goal. Right. And that comes from a graceful place, but it's also like it's just like well, if this is what I was born with, I expect someone else to be in the same position. Yeah. So that's where you'll jam with people really, really well. Yep. Like
I love helping people to find their purpose, like deepen into what it truly is, and then get enlightened and enlivened by it. Mm-hmm. And be that sounding board, be that person that helps shine the mirror on the areas they're not seeing so that they can continue to do the thing they need to do. But I'm definitely not going to be the one that is showing up to ask you if you've checked the boxes.
Totally. Yeah. And that's like, I can just see that just from reading the chart. Right. And that's what's so cool is like, when I go through this with people and they're in this place of like dazed and confused. And I think COVID gave that gift of people going, am I really doing what I want to do? And that's why I say that human design really saved my life, because I got to a place of where I was like, I've just got really lost. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was looking for an anchor, and I found it in the discovery of me. And it was all an internal game. So we'll keep going. All right. So if you like Pinterest like I do, so for those of you who are Pinterest warriors like me, you can go to Pinterest and look in like human design. What is the personality gate meanings? Something like that. And I remember finding an infographic on this. I had already learned the modality, but I wanted to figure out, like, I needed a snapshot because I'm a visual spatial thinker. So I needed a snapshot. So for those of you who are online right now, also pure generators, this gal Rachel is really, really dope. For those of you who are pure generators, she has a blog and a Pinterest thing and whatever. She's dope. So check out puregenerators.com. But on here, you can basically see like all of the gates and then what those unique gates on the personality side define. So we'll see like in your top gate, which is your conscious sun, the expression of personality and purpose. So here's how we're going to decode. Are you ready? Because this is usually pretty illuminating and awesome.
Okay.
So now this is what matters, is like I've already done all the work to figure out the best sites to go to give context around this. So yours is 23. Okay. So your conscious sun is 23. So I like unlockyourdesign.com. So I'll go here and do 23, and I'm going to let that pull up. And then there's this other gal, Christy Ing, ING, and she's really dope as well. And so I'm going to pull up her interpretation of this gate and show y'all kind of this process and how I go through it. So I like to use Christine's first. She also has a map that you can get where you buy, it's like $250, but it's like 150 pages long, all about your uniqueness and human design and what you're here to do. And it only goes to your incarnation cross, and it's 150 pages, but it's bomb, absolutely amazing. And I love her interpretations. So your unique personality, or how you show up in the world, one designation of this for your personal brand is called the alchemical wordsmith, which is funny that it's wordsmith and has alchemical in there, which is a way to look at it through this. It's the gate of assimilation,
Right. It's so funny considering I have been leaning into this idea of being a leadership and purpose alchemist.
See, there you go. Right. And so alchemy is just, it's old school chemistry. It's mystical chemistry. And so it's the embodiment of putting the right things in the right place to create the right outcome. And so the investigator, right, is the chemist, and you have to put these unique things together. And it's exciting for you to dive into that. It's almost like you allow people, you investigate enough about them to like allow them to see the heretic within themselves. Because if they really fully accepted who they were, then it would be heretical or heretical, right? I don't know, for them to say, I am God.
Yeah, well, right? It always is, right? But some way or another, Jesus, we are all God. Yes.
Right. Yeah. Yet when Jesus said it, they killed him for it. And but like he said, but no, that's you. I'm a reflection of you.
Yeah.
Yet people are so God. Like, oh my God, if you say that, you have one side of the game that says yes, you have the other side of the game that says crucify them, right? Like, because how can you be that? And it's like, no, that's the heretic. Like, but you have to know enough to embody and to embrace the heretic in you. And so like, that's a unique position. This is just like coming to me through this download for you, is like, know enough about yourself and other people to allow them to become the heretic in their own life. That when they look at their future self and they look at their past self will call them a heretic for the person who they're becoming. And that's the point.
That's beautiful.
Pretty dope, right? Assimilation, the gate of assimilation, the process of taking in and fully understanding information or ideas. Now, here's what's unique. Remember I told you this Anja, right, is the gate of systems and processes. So that's likely where this is connecting to, because you'll see 23, gate 23 is communication, but you're assimilating systems and processes around communication. And the gate 4323, a lot of times identified like that a lot of people who are deaf have this gate, because your systems processes, the way that you process information, it's an internal processing almost. It's a channeling almost. And so it doesn't require an external voice. Like how you assimilate is, it happens through this distance from like your nose to the bottom of your throat. And so that's like an internal thing that happens as you're communicating. It's like the ideas and the processes come out as you communicate. Is this making sense?
Yeah. Well, in Gene Keys, the shadow of the 43rd Gene Key is deafness, and the gift is insight, which is, and in that context, because that's what I know well, they talk a lot about deafness as in listening to everyone else and not your own deep insight and intuition and inner wisdom and higher self. And when you start to tune that out and be like, I have this information internally, like I know I have the wisdom, that's when you step into the gift side of the insight that you carry as your own higher being.
I love that. And that's feels very in line with where you're at and with the experience that you've been having in your growth. So looking here, it's like she calls it the alchemical wordsmith, because its primary action is to communicate radical ideas and be recognized for your ability to initiate transformation with your words alone. Selah, right? Just embrace that truth. And again, this is confirmation bias of who you already are. 70% of your human design comes from this one gate.
Yeah. I mean, wow. It's just so interesting when I think about my transition into doing the work I'm doing today, and that it took a lot for me to stop judging myself and be willing to fully embrace the fact that I can get on a call with someone. I can spend 1 hour a week with someone, and the words that I say to them change their life.
Yep.
And I mean, it goes back to what we were saying before about the godlike piece and all of those things. I mean, that felt so egotistical for me to embrace and say, like, this is what I do and how I truly can change somebody's life. And it's like right here in front of me. Like, this is literally saying, this is what I'm meant to do on this earth.
Yep. So like, when I lean into this with people and I'm coaching them, I have this unique perspective because, again, I'm a projector, right? So I take you and I make you 100 times bigger. I'm a seer. I'm not a doer. I'm a seer. So when people ask me, so Nick, what do you do? I'm like, well, in my head, I process, well, Nick, what do you see? And the benefit is I see the unique contribution that you can make without all the preconditions that you naturally will tell yourself. Mm-hmm. The benefit is you've done the work for the last few years. So you're right at the precipice of this. Mm-hmm. Like you're embodying this, you're stepping into this, you're finding yourself like embracing these ideas. You're embracing the heretic, right? And you've been doing that through the investigative nature of you digging, and the archaeologist in you of going like, I'm searching for the answers and I'm trying to find the truth. And it's like, well, the truth is right here. Mm-hmm. Communicate radical ideas and you'll be recognized for your ability to initiate transformation with your words alone. I remember my dad said something to me that was really powerful, and I feel led to share this with you because there's uniqueness for you and I, and that, like you said, soul brother, it's like, it's very true. So if we're part of the same family, then from a spiritual father perspective, there's probably something here that's true. I remember one time I called my dad and I said, Dad, I get so like in my head, I don't know what to do. And he's like, Nick, you're an oracle for God. Open your mouth.
Wow.
And I just remember sitting back and going like, whoa. Because I knew he was right. Mm-hmm. And I can go through so many different stories because I grew up like straight up Pentecostal, crazy waving flags Christian. Okay. And I don't have all the same beliefs today that I once held, but I do believe that faith, if you're raised in it, is a foundation for your spiritual experience. So I embrace it. It's just my dialect. So roll with me. Moses had to step up to a king and say, you need to let my people out of bondage and slavery now. Basically, all the prisoners who were in there, you need to let them go. And he was a guy who stuttered and could barely formulate a sentence. And his inadequacy of what he believed that, like, who am I to be what? A heretic. To go to a king and be like, hey, you need to let all those prisoners go. And if you don't, then God's going to smite you. That takes a heretic. That takes somebody who's willing to like put it all on the line. And it also requires a place of a necessary void, a necessary shadow to overcome. And so I guess my call to you is think about this like an oracle. Embrace the concept of radical ideas. Like, I want to know right now, like, what are the fucking radical ideas that you want to communicate about? Because the reality is, if you're not, then you're not going to be the city on a hill. You're not going to be the lighthouse. You're not going to be the beacon. And like overcoming that shadow of rejection or whatever it may be, because the heretic, right? It's always the opposite side. So it's like the opposite of the heretic is the one who just fits into the crowd. The radical ideas are what are going to set you apart, no matter the consequence.
Right.
So what are those radical ideas? Yeah,
so much, right? I mean, I think what's been interesting for me to step into and embrace is that I have, as a human, chosen to walk away and not be in the crowd, right? Like I have lived my life as the example, but I haven't outwardly expressed it as much. Correct. So I've lived my life as the example of, I'm not going to work for somebody else who wants to like make money off of my back. And I'm going to choose a different path. And I'm going to move my family to Mexico when I'm 7.5 months pregnant, because basically like the stars aligned and it's what we were like, we got to do this. So being able to look at how I've chosen paths that are from the way that our society tells us to live are so radically, considered radical, right? They're considered irresponsible. They're considered putting ourselves in like dangerous positions potentially. And yet my life has been so fucking amazing. And I had a friend and a mentor of mine a couple of years ago literally just call it out. She's like, do you understand so many people want to do this and they're fucking afraid to do it?
Oh, yeah.
Like, you need to be telling people how to do this, how to step out of, I mean, the matrix, as I'm like air quoting for those listening, like the bullshit of what we're told we have to live in society and actually find the path that is yours. that is truly yours and in alignment, and be able to stop listening to what everyone else says is how we're supposed to live, and listen to your own deeper soul like level, and whatever that may be. I mean, one of the things we talked about on the last episode a little bit is like, I am such a big believer in find what works for you. Like if I need to pray at my altar to the 4 elements, and that's what makes me feel like a spirit is alive in me, and you, I mean, you're not still in it, but let's just say you were, right? Still in the Pentecostal church. And that is what makes it alive for you. As long as you're actually living in a super soul aligned, like way that lights up everyone around you, and it's not harming other people, then fucking do it. Like, then do it. You know, if you're a pagan ritualist and it's lighting you up, like, do it. And it's bringing your light out of you that is inspiring other people. Do that. Choose the path that is going to be the most radically enlightening to you, that then lights everyone else up around you. And stop listening to how everyone else is telling you. We have this interesting discussion in my house a lot, because my husband and I are very aligned on this philosophy. And when we go home to his family, they're very accepting of us and are so stuck in their own conditioning. It breaks my fucking heart. It breaks my heart, because they see these 18-year-old kids going to college, taking on hundreds of thousands of dollars of debt, believing it's the only way that they're going to be successful. And it's like, there's such another way. And
yes, you said this, and I want to point this out to you. It's incredibly important. And this is what I do. Like, so when I'm coaching people through this process, this is it. Because a lot of times, like you're like riffing, and I'm going like, oh, this is an orchestra. Like I hear a symphony, right? Like I hear in music, I hear in cadence. And so you drop it, and I go like, fuck, this is it right here. Because I'm always looking for the 3 to 5 word expression. What's your billboard? You said, find what works for you. What a radical idea. And what I'm noticing are these 2 parallels, right? Radical ideas are not necessarily radical ideas 20 years ago.
Right.
You know, it's also not necessarily, it may be radical today. Like Elvis shaking his hips was very radical in the 50s, but like, look at today, right? Like what? Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
I think that you polarize in both directions. So here's the funny thing, because depending upon what you're teaching, you might be like, a radical idea might be like, okay, you got to roll with me here, okay? Because this is part of the process. It's important. Andrew Tate is a great example of radical ideas.
Okay.
He's the most Googled person on the planet.
Totally. No,
all right.
Okay.
But this is the reality. You've got to stand out, because I was literally, and maybe this is in preparation for this, I got woken up about 15 times last night, like constantly. It's like I couldn't sleep. And everything that kept coming in my head was like the attention economy, attention. How do you get attention? How do people get attention? How are they drafting attention? And I'm like, holy crap, you got to be like on one end of the spectrum or the other. Like the world has gotten so, the width is so wide that like everyone in the middle is not being seen. They're not being heard. They're not being, let's say, paid attention to. And so you have to communicate radical ideas that might really set people in a direction of where they're like, what did she say? Like you might be like, monogamous relationships are the only thing that should happen. And to your community, they might be like, heretic. And you might be like, no, I want you to see it from this perspective that maybe you don't. And it seems radical, but it's original in the sense of traditional. Then you might have a totally opposite perspective that is like in the opposite direction. You should have like 25 partners and you should all live together and do whatever. And that's a radical idea in the different direction. Like the contrast of life needs to be so apparent for you. Go ahead.
Well, I think what's interesting about what you're saying is that I have really felt that one of the really interesting and unique things about me is that it is really fucking hard to put me in a box.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there is very little. Like, people will assume a lot of things about me, and this is probably where I need to be, like, out using my voice more. They'll see me acting in a little bit of a crunchy granola type way in certain areas of my life. I'm going to have a home birth, right? Like, I have, there's a lot of areas where I fall into one category, but then that does not translate to a whole lot of other areas of my life. And it's very and I actually believe this is how most people are. And but things have gotten so polarized. So is there a radical idea actually about standing in, not being in a box too? And being so fully individual while also believing so wholly in the collective. Like, there's a lot there that I think is, I love not being able to be I love surprising the shit out of people.
Yeah, me too.
It's one of my favorite things. I have a story about, actually, she was a guest on my show already, and I'm so glad we reconnected. But when we were in college, she was my suite mate, and I remember Kate King, she said, so there's an episode with her brilliant family therapist. She said to me one day, she was like, when we first moved in together, I thought you were a delicate flower, and I was very wrong. I'm like,
yeah, no, you're straight up warrior fire. but that's a part of the switch that you have, the diversity in your exterior, or the assumptive realities where you're from, what you're maybe about from, the first impression, versus the depth of who you are. Yeah. Oh yeah.
So interesting. Okay, this is so good. Let's keep going.
Isn't this cool? All right. So down here, you can go through this, Christine, inge.com, and then Gate 23. So I'm just going to list off a couple things and we'll go to the next one.
Okay.
So communicate radical ideas. So for you, your message to people, and we're going to get to your message. So it might be around this concept, or it might provide some more context. But find what works for you is a really important statement that I would write down. Okay. Then underneath that, the 3-word is communicate radical ideas. Again, this is part of your truth. This is part of your confirmation basis. It's like, have you been communicating radical ideas? If not, then you'll find yourself in deeper alignment when you do than when you don't. Because you've got to always scratch the itch of being a heretic. It's just part of your design. So keywords. And
it's also scary, right?
It's super scary.
It's super
it requires
fucking
courage.
Scary. Like that is, it is, I know it's the thing that makes me the most uncomfortable, and therefore it is the thing I need to do.
Yep. But one of the things that I realized too is, like, you have gate 21, gate of the manager, which is also the gate of the champion, which is also the gate of the warrior. So Leonidas from 300 is a great example. You got to do it scared. You have to find that place of deep courage for you, because you have it defined, which means you were already born with the instructions on how to do it. But a lot of times we have to reactivate that part of us. And you have a defined gate and a center that is undefined. So it might require some external conditioning to reignite the internal instructions. And that's probably the spiritual warrior in you. I define gate 21 for people who've been more spiritual as the spiritual warrior in you. It's your higher self of, like, Dragon Ball Z. When the guy goes like, rah, and he turns into Super Saiyan, that's gate 21 for you. But you've got to find the emotion that triggers that reaction for you to go into, like, nuclear mode, of, like, unstoppable mode. And that requires some type of prompting. Like for Leonidas, he was being attacked. Right. Like, so if we're going to activate, like, we have to have something to protect and defend, in addition for something that's worthwhile as a cause to die for. And so again, that's why, like, yes, courage is absolutely a part of this equation for you to go from your heart center, which is your willingness, in your identity center, which is to say, this is my radical idea, and then communicate it up through the ascension. So right. So speaking the truth.
I have a theory about this that is like, this is actually like I'm on the precipice of, and we will have to maybe have a part 3 after.
We're going to do part 3.
Go through this.
after
I have my baby, because I feel like there's a lot of connection to that. So, okay.
I hope I don't trigger any birth, sequences or Braxton Hicks that you're going through this. All right. Human design definition. Do you want to read this part?
So my human design definition is amorality, the awareness and understanding which leads to acceptance of diversity. Okay. Interesting.
Yep. So the awareness and understanding which leads to the acceptance of diversity. Awareness, it's a chemistry alchemist, right? It's a formula. Awareness plus understanding equals acceptance with a self-defined denominator of diversity. So awareness, understanding, acceptance. I look at those three words and I go like, those are three massive keywords for you through the process of self-identification through diversity. Diversity being the ways that we're different. Diversity are also the ways that we're unique. A great book for you to read would be Rare Breed. It's a guide for the dangerous, the defiant, and the disenfranchised, basically. And for people like you and me, who are very, very unique, who are wild, rare breeds. And I think that this will really give you some more context and color around this concept. Awareness plus understanding plus acceptance, or equals acceptance over diversity. And I think that that's a unique lens for you to think about as well. Mm-hmm. So one other way to think about this is a formula for you, or a methodology for you, which is awareness, step 1, understanding, step 2, acceptance, step 3. Now measure that bridge of someone's consciousness over their ability to understand people who are different. Or themselves and the higher version versus the past version of who they are. Do you see that?
I totally see that. And I see that, like, again, I tend to live my life in this place, which also makes me a great coach, of there is almost no situation that you can come to me to where I'm going to like react with a shaming or a judging lens. Like, I'm going to be very open and accepting of everything that comes through my anything. And that creates an environment of safety, which then allows me to kind of shine the light back. And I see this process, right? Like, I see how somebody, they get the awareness because I've shined the mirror back to them. They start to deepen into their understanding and get rid of all the shame that they've carried around all of that, which then allows them to become the greatest version of themselves, which allows them to be a lot more flexible in how they deal with life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And business,
and I just see it's
and
this
everything
bridge.
else.
It's this bridge of reality for them, of like, we first have to be aware, to understand, to then accept. And on one side is probably conforming, and on the other side is diversity. And so you're taking people between this bridge of conforming to all the expectations of everyone else and everything they've been conditioned by, the shadow, really. I mean, and into
they're living in their shadow.
And that's it. They're living in the shadow, and they're like, but I want to get to the other side, but how do I get there? Well, the how is the awareness. If you had deeper awareness, Mrs. Smith, who wants to come to your event, if you had deeper awareness, deeper understanding, and clarity on acceptance, you could step into this next part or version of you, right? And that's the diverse part of you. That's the accepting all the spectrum of color, not just the black and white reality of what you believe is true. So that is the bridge. Nick. Like, that is a lot of the how, right? Isn't this crazy? Like, this is why I tell people, like, man, you talk about 20 hours a day of like going nuts, like figuring this stuff out. Like, I'm telling you, there's magic here. So this gate, the wordsmith, the energy to communicate radical ideas with simplicity. And so what does that take? It takes awareness, understanding, awareness, understanding, and acceptance in order to communicate those things. That's your own process. And it's also likely how you can help other people. So I would encourage you to go through this a little bit more. I'd love to like take you through a couple more. And I don't know how are we at with time?
Yeah, we've got, at least 15 minutes, if not 20. Let's keep going.
Okay. So, and I'll make this one really, really brief. Unlock your design is another way of like kind of defining the archetype. So this is the translator. It's another way for you to think about it. Remember I said the oracle? It's true because you're translating potentially spiritual things into earthly things, also confusing things into simple things. And so your process of awareness, understanding, and acceptance will allow you to communicate it with ease and clarity, and or be it simplicity. So you're a translator. Trust your own inner path before any external teaching or teacher, right? And you talked about this before. That's part of your vernacular. That's part of who you are. It's part of how you naturally show up in the world. It's like, listen, you got to trust you before you listen to me. But if you're in a place of wanting to trust you more, I'm going to help you trust you more. This is something I think unique that you and I share. I don't have the answers. I go, no, I'm not a coach for like you in the sense of like the person going, let me tell you everything you need to do. I go like, no, all the answers are in you. It's my job to extract them out of you. That's the conduit.
Totally.
It's like it comes into my orbit and then I give it back to you and go like, what do you think? And very similar to the process that you do. So translates inspiration as inner knowledge into language. So above, down, inside out, part of your process. Above, down, inside out. You got to be connected, right? To the supernatural, to a higher dimension. You translate that inspiration into your deeper knowing. It's not belief. It's I know that I know that I know. That's when it comes out simply because it's extremely powerful and very, very clear. So this is another one that will give just more color, more contrast, and incredible sharpness and depth on this gate for you. And this is your personal brand. And look at this, right? Remember I told you to read the book Rare Breed, which is all about the defiant and the dangerous and the different. Naturally articulates concepts that come out of the rebel. So the rebel is naturally who you're going to be connected to very, very easily based on this gate. Shake up your life, investigate or instigate new perspectives. So this is more context, and this is just one of your gates. Yeah. All right. Pretty cool, right?
Yeah. That is awesome. Amazing.
So like, 40.
What great resources. What great resources. That's incredible.
I'm giving all the goods. Like I haven't shared this stuff yet. And people go like, this is all you do, right? And I'm like, oh no, this is just like one of like 6 things that I do.
One tiny thing.
But like what's cool is like anytime that I'm working with someone, I've said it a million times and I'll say it again. God has given me the unique ability to help people make a powerful contribution in the world. And I do that through my own process of having to figure myself out and through all of those late nights of trying to like solve stuff and just to synchronize it into simplicity in order to create opportunity for people. It's so much fun. Oh, look at this. This is what grounds you. This is incredibly important. Okay. So on this sheet, that your conscious earth right here, 43, what grounds you is the rebel. Rebels ground you. Okay. Like rebels ground you. If you're not around rebels, you're going to feel like you're like a feather blowing in the wind. Attract rebels.
Yeah.
And be rebellious because that's what makes you feel like you're doing what you're supposed to do.
That is an absolute truth for me. Yeah.
Without the creative passion and insight of the individual, life would not only be dull, but it would probably cease altogether. Selective hearing into spontaneous resolution. And we'll look this up in Christine's as well. We'll kind of take a quick preview here, and then you can kind of chat through some of these elements. Again, what grounds you? The listener within, right? The gate of insight. Primary action is to tune ideas that create breakthroughs. Tune into ideas that create breakthroughs. I would go like, what does your YouTube motivational playlist look like? Because you should be listening to people because you have an open head, which means you're open to brainstorming new concepts, new ideas. You should always be listening to people that you believe are creating breakthroughs for other people. Because you're not looking for their vernacular. You're tuning into the ideas, the concepts, the infrastructures. That's probably why you and I connect a lot on this as well. There's a stabilizing factor because you know that I create breakthroughs for people. So it grounds you, right? And it's inspiring to you. So in action, it's trust and listen to your internal wisdom. Would it be such a novel idea for rebels to be the people who don't listen to other people, but listen to their inner guide with 100% bliss, alignment, 100%, like, I hate this word, but I can't figure out a different word, with blind obedience? Would it be such a ridiculous idea, a radical idea to trust your inner wisdom and knowing and be a rebel by like, my parents said this, or my boss said this, but I believe this, therefore I'm going to listen to it and do it.
Yeah. I think, interestingly, it's the gift or the city of the gene key that we share in our purpose, which is total devotion to that idea. Like blind obedience is total devotion.
Yes. Yes. Oh, yes. Yes. It's yes. Yes. Yeah. The highest form of commitment. Because it's belief, it's trust, it's knowing. So these are very mixed for you. So the fact that this grounds you, I look at this in a couple ways. It grounds you because if you're ever feeling like you're a feather blowing in the wind and you're losing your footing, you got to come back to here. Now, what's interesting about your profile, again, because we looked at it, you don't have a defined intuitive center. Intuitive is also like safety, intuition, safety mechanisms, things like that. It's not defined. So your gate 10, which is your God gate, which is your coach gate, directly is hanging towards 57. Now, here's what's funny. Gate 57 is the gate of intuition. You need to coach intuitive people. Watch, this is what makes this process so nuts. And again, I know the gates, so this is why it makes it easier to go through quickly. Gate 57 is the gate of intuition. Therefore, when you're coaching people who are intuitives, you're coaching them to do what? To trust their inner wisdom and their inner knowing.
Yeah. Okay. Right? Yes.
So what they need from you, because 10 is the God gate, it's the gate of that coaching gate, that your ability to coach is reaching out to someone else's intuition and going like, are you going to grab this? And for them, they may be an intuitive who's not listening to their inner knowing. I mean, imagine if a woman came to you and said, I know I need to like get divorced from my husband, but I just can't do it. But every day I'm literally tormented by the reality that my inner wisdom says do it, and I can't. Or they're like, I know that I need to quit my job and I need to move and I need to go here and do this thing and do whatever, but I can't. You're the one who holds the torch of the radical idea. They may have the idea because they're intuitive. You may be the one that coaches them through it by saying, is it really so radical? Being a rebel is part of the unique nature of who we are. We have to accept the diversity of differing ideas, of different paradigms. You might say, no, you need to stay, and here's why. But you want them to find the answer within themselves. Maybe they just never considered a different perspective of how it could be different. And maybe you restore relationships that way. That's the uniqueness. But for you, remember, when I was doing stuff, like all of my events were around intuition, the intuitive entrepreneur. Naturally, you're attracted to 57. What's interesting is that I have a defined spleen, but I don't have a defined gate at 57. The number one people who come to me have a defined gate of 57. They're intuitives. So I've scored these. I've narrowed them out. So you can see in here number 57 and then 57. Now I have these defined in as far as like a total score for whatever the gate is. So people come to me most often, for the people that I've worked with, is gate 30, which is the deep feeler. Then it goes number 10, number 26, number 3, but you can see 57 is here, which connects to the tranquil, which is my belief to trust God and my communication around trusting the process. But you'll notice up here in the second one, it also attracts to gate 10, which is the self-love North Star. So it hits two areas because you'll see it has split definition. So number 57 goes to 10, and it also goes up to 20. So when I add 10 and 20 together, that's how I have the most amount of people who come to me are intuitives. So when I say I'm an intuitive entrepreneur, they go, oh yeah, he's like me. It's like, no, I coach you off your intuition to make the greatest contribution in the world that you can make. You do the same thing. There's a similarity in our ability to coach intuitive people who need to trust their inner knowing and their inner guide. And that should be paramount in your messaging. Because not only does it ground you, it also is the thing that they're looking for in a coach. And it's the self-love of your ability to coach comes from a place of self-love. Be it that the more that you love yourself, the more that you'll attract those people who watch you trusting your inner guide and going like, I want to do that.
My brain is exploding.
Crazy shit, right? Crazy shit. I'm telling you, this is ultimate definition and clarity. And we're not changing anything. We're amplifying what we know is true.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
So, common theme, fear of rejection.
Mm-hmm.
The rebel, right, always has the other side of like, well, what if I'm not accepted? It's like,
totally.
well, when rebels are together, we are the misfits.
Yeah.
So we have to be rejected. And what getting rejected means is getting more no's. Getting more people to go like, well, that's a stupid idea. Jamie, why would you say that? And you're going like, I don't care if it's a stupid idea. It's true for me.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, by telling people the truth, it always requires death. By inviting people into the truth, it always requires death. And that's why when I look at the scriptural reference of being like a lamb led to the slaughter, truth, be it new life or resurrection or ascension, always requires death. In every mystical reality, in every spiritual book, in every foundation of truth, you have to accept a new idea or a reformed idea or a resurrected idea in order to depart from the old idea. And that is the process of the shadow into the city.
Yeah. And what you're saying is what I was starting to mention before. And I think it's interesting. We'll be bringing the listeners, I think, along on this journey. I have been feeling as though this going into having my baby, which as of recording this episode is in 2 weeks, it'll probably be coming out after it happens. That in and of itself is a huge death and rebirth process for mom, right? Like I love the idea and the archetype of the maiden to mother process. You are allowing the maiden version of yourself to die, to become and step into the greatest version of mother. And this happens every single time you have a child. Like, this is not just the first time that you step into motherhood. It happens every single time. And I've chosen a path this time that is very different from what I experienced last time, and is going to force me to have a level of courage that, I'll be honest, like many days I'm afraid I don't have, but I am not giving myself the other option. And for me, it is releasing a huge part of the former version of myself. And I have been having this feeling that this process is ushering in a huge death and rebirth process in all of me, not just in the motherhood journey, but like it is going to be a huge piece of what transitions me into the next level of my work and everything else around it.
Life has its unique way of letting, the unique moments of life also represent like where we're at and what we're experiencing, right? Of you're birthing a child and you're on this journey of this next stage of motherhood. And at the same time, like you're creating a new beginning within your business and your work and all of that. And it's so synchronistic and it's so powerful. I guess that my little reminder to you, based on the reality of what we experienced today and this journey for you of motherhood, of like this whole new beginning, is to just continue to remind yourself, like a really good tattoo, like not literally, but like figuratively, but literally if you want to, is to find what works for you and to live by it and to actually like be willing to die by it as well. I think there's a defiance about when you have a knowing, there's a defiance that's required because this is where the waters get muddy in life, of where I feel like a lot of people are, well, you got to be open and you have to be like open-minded and open whatever. And it's like, not when I know that I know that I know. Like beliefs are so important because they are the filter to our human experience of the feelings that we have. And that's where the great repair of the Wu Wei, I mean, like truly like a Buddhist mentality, a Stoic mentality of like events will happen in your life. And if after the events come emotions, you are not allowing yourself to filter the most beautiful part of your life. You're allowing open access to anyone and everyone who's just going to trigger you or not trigger you or like throw an idea. Well, yeah, I believe that. Right. And it's like, no, we have to have a subset of beliefs. And I don't care. Someone might say, well, I don't believe in God. Great. Like you were talking about earlier, if that doesn't give you green light emotion and that doesn't amp you up, then freaking sweet. You don't have to believe in God. But if you do, then accept it fully as truth and like believe it and know it. And sure, there could be an openness to discussion, But like, there doesn't have to be an openness to conditioning when you heal a wound in your life that ends up becoming something that is what I think is a win in your life. And that can always transform and change. But I think that when we stand for nothing, like, we're standing for something, which is obscurity. And so what I love about where you're at is like, stand for your knowing, be in your knowing, embrace your knowing, and find what works for you and let it serve you for the season that it serves you, and then go on to the damn next radical thing. But I'm grateful for you and your contribution in the world, and we can do more of this whenever you want. And so, yeah, that's basically it.
Well, thank you. I mean, that was super amazing and obviously very enlightening. And I'm sure there are people that are going to be listening that are like, I need that in my life, because you gave a lot of amazing resources, which of course we'll share those links in the show notes. But the way that you put it together and created the insights is so powerful.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, information on a black and white piece of paper is information. And I think that the unique portal that people allow me into in their life is to be a part of the inspiration of their life, which is them living in spirit, which there's a different level of openness. There's a different level of like what we're seeing together. And that's the uniqueness of what I do. I mean, I think that's why God created humanity, because we could have just had like two people, and it's like, well, but the challenge is you can never see yourself uniquely for who you are. In a room of 1,000 people, you could see everybody else, but you can't see you. It requires what? It requires a mirror. And you know how I figured this out, Jamie? One of my masterminds, which was like a virtual mastermind, one of my coaches said, try a reverse hot seat. I said, what the hell's a reverse hot seat? And he was like, it's where you gas somebody up and you encourage the hell out of them to the point where they're so uncomfortable that they start crying. And I'm like, whoa. So I did it in my group. And it was one of the most moving, powerful experiences that I've ever been a part of. And then I also did it in person. And I framed it as the gift that I see in you. The world is starving for encouragement. Yeah. One word of encouragement, let alone for someone to reflect uniqueness of identity back to them of the things that they know that are true versus the things that are not true, that society may say that are true, or whatever the hell crazy stuff that goes on out there. I'm just reflecting back truth and going like, I want to help you stand in the uniqueness of who you are. And that's why I always say I'm the best person on the planet that will help you find your unique contribution. If we can't figure it out together, shit, you're screwed. But like, I know there's a knowing. And that's what amps me up, because you'll have a different level of confidence going into the battle of life and to chase the things that you want.
It's incredible. So if somebody wants to reach out to you, where do they go?
Probably just my Instagram at Nick Cavuoto, and just send me a message and just be like, yo, let's do that human design thing. I heard you on Jamie's podcast, and I'll walk you through it. I've done this with now 3 people outside of myself, and every single person was like about to fall on the floor, like in like the amount of clarity and how powerful the process is. I've done readings for a lot of people, but I mean, how to apply it to business. And so it's really just in those early stages of like, I don't know, just reach out and we'll figure it out. Like, I don't have a pricing structure around it. I don't have like it's a 2-hour call and this is all the stuff we're going to do. And here's all your outcomes. If you're feeling an inner calling to like have me help you figure this out, reach out. We'll find something that works and then we'll collaborate until I figure out how to do it in a greater capacity. I'm just grateful I got a chance to serve alongside you today and reflect back the freaking brilliance of who you are. That to me is the greatest honor through this. And so I super appreciate you. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart. So.
Wow. I'm super grateful because that was so insightful. And I like so much to integrate in everything you just gave me. So thank you. And thank you to everyone who's listening. Being willing to embrace this because it's super vulnerable. Like that, you are hearing and learning about like the depth of my soul. And I think it's so valuable and I'm happy to share that. And I hope it encourages everyone who's listening to explore it for themselves and really deepen into what that looks like for you. And yeah, thank you, Nick. Obviously,
you're welcome.
It won't be the last time that you and I are having an amazing conversation on here, because I just think it adds a ton of value to the world. So
cool.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.